Right, let's get baking. First, you're going to scale off your flour into the mixing bowl. Scale off your water. Scale your yeast. Scale your salt. And the fat, I haven't included the video of the fat. And your bread improver. Right, now that we've scaled all the ingredients, let me just quickly run through everything again. So it's 1.070 grams of bread flour. And for baker's percentage terms, that's 100%. So your flour is always 100% of your recipe. Your water, 0.674 grams of water. So that's 63% of your flour weight. So 63% of your flour weight is the weight of your water. Bread improver, this is Puratos, Chipkins Puratos S500. You can get it from them. It's 1% or 10 grams. Baker's shortening or wholesome vegetable shortening, 50 grams or 5%. Instant dry yeast, and don't use the active yeast, the one that you have to pre-mix with water and let it stand for 10 minutes and see if it starts to bubble. Just buy both NCP yeast or Anchor yeast in South Africa have got instant dry yeast. Just buy the instant dry yeast and it goes straight into the flour. You don't have to pre-mix it with water. So that's 10 grams of yeast, dry yeast, and that's 1%. And then salt is 20 grams, and that's 2%, just normal table salt. All the ingredients then are percentages of the flour weight, and they can all just be added directly now to the mixer and when you start to mix. Right, so let's put all the ingredients in the mixing bowl now. Flour's in. What I normally do is add the yeast, and then just mix the yeast around into the flour so that when you add the salt doesn't come into contact with the yeast. It's just a way of preventing the salt from touching the yeast. Then add the salt, add the improver, add the shortening, add the water, and then need the dough hook. And we're going to mix it on 2 minutes slow, and then about 10 minutes fast. But we'll check the dough a little bit later. Because of the noise of the mixer, I'll just speed through this, and then I'll be back when the dough is mixed. Right, so it's been about 8 minutes now, and I just want to check it because I did say 10 minutes, but it could be 8 to 10 minutes. So what we normally do is just do like it's called a window test on the dough, just to make sure that the gluten is developed. So if the dough stretches out and you can get quite thin without the dough tearing, which it's there starting to do, so we'll let it run a little bit more for another 2 minutes. All right, so just we're at 10 minutes now. So just to show you what that window test does. So basically now you'll see the gluten's developed to a point where you can now stretch the dough out, and it stretches quite thin and doesn't tear. And so that ultimately is your test for your gluten development. Right, so now that we've finished mixing, I'll get the dough out of the mixing bowl and onto the surface. Just a lightly floured surface. Put the dough out. Just try and get yourselves some scrapers if you're baking. So a steel scraper for cutting, and bowl scraper for scraping bowls. And then, so the recipe that I've used here now is a recipe that gives me 2 loaves. So basically scale this dough now into 2 equal loaves, for the size of my bread pans. So 920. There we go. Then we're just going to quickly round the dough. This just gives it a shape so that it creates a bit of tension in the dough, and you're now going to rest the dough for 10 minutes. Rest the dough here for 10 minutes. We're just going to lightly flour it so that it doesn't stick to the plastic, and we're going to cover it with plastic to prevent it from drying out and skinning. So just some cling film or glad wrap or whatever, just cover it so that it doesn't skin, and you're going to have it there for about 10 minutes to rest. Right, so while the dough is resting, let's just quickly talk about the pans. So obviously for bunny chow, we're looking at a sandwich type pan. That's a pan that has a lid on it, so you get a flat top instead of getting that raised high loaf kind of top. So basically, you're looking for a pan. This one is called a Pullman loaf. You can get it off like somewhere like Amazon or one of those Take a Lot or something like that. So basically, it's just a pan that has a tight fitting lid. And then in the bakeries, they use a strapped pan, something like this. So the dough is placed into the pans, and then there's a lid that covers the loaf. So you normally get them in straps of 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the ovens that you're using. But that's just a quick rundown on the pan. So an open pan like this would be for a high loaf, high top bread, and a pan with a lid on like this, or a lid that covers the strap, would be a sandwich loaf tin. So to prepare the pans for baking, also just something like this is just like a spray and cook, or a baking spray. So basically, just give the pans a decent spray, and then also you're wanting to spray the inside of the lid like that, so that the loaf doesn't stick. But yeah, any type of cooking spray will do. Right, so it's been just over 10 minutes. What you want to look for is that the dough has rested. So if you press your finger into it, make sure that it doesn't immediately spring back up again. It shows that the dough has now had sufficient time to relax, and the gluten is now relaxed. So now we can proceed with the shaping of the bread. So you've got this is the top of your bread. So turn it upside down. Shaping it, basically you're just looking at getting square sides. You want to get it into like a sausage shape, and you're wanting to mold it up and seal the bottom of the loaf. Let's just run through that bread shaping process again. So just looking at getting a uniform loaf shape out of the dough, and then for the 4-piece cut, we're gonna just cut the dough like this, and so you've got your 4 pieces, and then place it into the pan as such. It looks something like that. Right, so we've now panned the bread. So the 4-piece method looks like that. If you don't want to do the 4-piece method, you can just put the molded log like we did into the pan, and it'll give you reasonable results. This method just gives you, it's like a safety precaution to prevent the loaves from caving in the sides. And this is how they do it in the bakeries. Anyway, so there's your dough. We're going to basically take it now, put it into the prover, and we're going to prove it for about an hour. until the dough is at a particular point in the pan. I'll show you where it is, and then we can put the lids on, put it into the oven. I realize obviously not everybody has a steam oven, so if you, in order to prove it, you can just prove it outside on the counter, somewhere warm, covered though, so that it doesn't skim. The prover just prevents the dough from developing a skim, so that it doesn't crack and do funny things in the oven. So if you don't have a prover, just make sure it's nicely covered, either with plastic or with a tea towel or something like that, maybe a damp tea towel, and just have it covered so that it doesn't form a skin. And it may prove a little bit longer than an hour, maybe an hour 30, something like that. Okay, so those proved. Just to show you what it looks like. So obviously not waiting for it to get all the way to the top. We need there's some oven springs. So basically you're looking at probably about a ½ an inch from the top of the pan. So basically now we're going to just pop the lids on and into the oven. Oven has been preheating. The temperature is 233 degrees, or so basically 240 degrees, because it's a Fahrenheit oven in North America, so it's the closest is 233 degrees. But anyway, into the oven, and then we're going to immediately reduce the temperature down now to 220, and we're going to bake it for 35 minutes in total. And so it'll be halfway through the bake, I'll then turn the loaves around so they bake evenly, and so about 17 minutes in, I'll swap the pans around, and then at the end of the baking show you. Right, so the loaves are baked. You want to get them out of the pans as quick as possible so that they don't sweat in the pans. Just get them onto a baking to a rack like this that allows them to a cooling rack. And there you have homemade bakery style bread for bunny chows. Right, so cutting the bread now for the quarter, using a sharp serrated knife so you don't tear the bread. And basically just you're going to cut around the edges like this in order to remove the middle piece. There we have it, folks. Perfect quarter mutton bunny, salads. Thanks for watching.